Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to block sand down these two fenders, doors, and hood. And we're going to get them in the spray booth and repaint them the right color, bluish green color. We're going to wet sand these with a sanding block and 500 grit sandpaper, which I have over here. So we're going to use a 500 grit 3M wet sanding paper and a block. And we are gonna wet sand these all down until they're nice and flat, and then we will Scotch Brite all the door jambs. The body of the car is in the spray booth. I finished up the floor pans and put it in primer. I just primered the quarters and the rear panel for now. So right now the quarter panels are primered and this rear tail pan. This was epoxy primered and 2K primered. That's just that part of the trunk that was replaced. I have not done anything with the dashboard yet. I still have to pull the windshield out. So the windshield has to come out. That's gonna get replaced. Dashboard's gonna get painted a different color than the body of the car because the dashboard's gonna match the interior. As far as the firewall and stuff, that's probably just gonna get a good sanding and a repaint. It's not gonna get filler primed. There's really no reason to do that. Also, the front frame rail needs to be sanded down. The whole front here, suspension and everything, we'll reshoot that a satin black. And the convertible rack. I have to finish taking off this part of the old convertible top, and then the rack needs to be painted a satin black. The floors in the car, this is epoxy primered. So they are all primered, all back together, nice and solid. So that's where we are with this. So I'll roll this thing out of here in a little bit once we get all those other panels wet sanded down. I'll show you the process of how I'm gonna wet sand these. And then I will come back as I get some done and show you what it looks like. They should sand down fairly quickly. So let me get some water here and we'll set up. We'll do this door first just to show you how I'm gonna go about doing this. Just like when we wet sanded all those other parts on that other video. So I'm just gonna take my time and we want to get this sanded down really flat so it's not gonna be ripply. These have been sitting for a couple weeks now, so they're nice and cured. And then when we go to paint them, we'll put a coat of clear inner coat, which is just a clear base coat. We'll put a good coat down of that. And what that's gonna do is just cover up any sanding marks, if we were to leave any sanding marks with this 500 grit, because we don't want the new paint metallics to stick in these sanding marks that we are making with the 500 grit. I don't like going higher than 500-600 grit. I don't think you need to, especially because you're putting more paint over it. You want to have something for it to stick to. So if you went up to like 1,000-1,200 grit, in my opinion, I don't think that the paint will stick as well as it should, because it's just going to be too smooth. So basically I'm going to take the next couple hours and wet sand these all down really well. And if for some reason I break through on the edge or something like that, I'm not going to worry about it. Not a big deal because there's new color going over top of it. The reason why I'm not going to put an epoxy primer for a sealer down is because I want to use this old color so that I don't have to use as much of the new color, if that makes sense. The new color is almost, it's just a little darker than this really, it's not far off. So by having this down first, putting 2 coats of that new color over top is probably all we're going to need to do. And then we can re-clear it. But now that we have this opportunity to repaint these panels a second time, I want to really take advantage of that and block sand for a while with this 500 grit and get this nice and flat. Just consider this as a really good 2K primering. Don't want to push real hard, just gotta let the sandpaper do the work. Now this is one of those steps where you don't want to use a DA sander or anything like that, because all you're going to do is put ripples in your panel. So you'll be able to see here. How nice and flat this will be. Really hard to pick up on the camera. But just gonna go through and sand it until it's perfectly smooth and nice and flat. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this for a while. There's no point in me videotaping all of this because it's just boring block sanding. And then we'll come back after I get a couple panels down and show you how it's going. So I will be back in a little while. Okay, I got the first 2 panels wet sanded down with 500 grit. I have not done anything with the jambs yet, just the flat surfaces. I am using 1/2 sheet of 500 grit sandpaper for each panel. So after I get done with the panel, I throw that piece away and I get another one. The piece is probably still good for a little bit, and you guys are probably wondering, why would I waste sandpaper? The reason why I'm doing this is because I want the sandpaper to cut really fast and flat. And it always does best when it's a new piece of sandpaper. So I am using a 1/2 sheet per panel and then getting rid of it. Now, when you guys are sanding these down, don't expect to get it all in the first sanding. Sand it for a while, wipe it down, dry it off, and find any of your shiny spots that are left and go over it again. It takes me about a 1/2 hour per panel to sand it down, and maybe another 10 minutes or so to scuff the door jambs down. So plan on 1/2 hour to 45 minutes per panel to get them all sanded down and ready for paint. Now, if you guys are painting panels, you know, repainting them like I am here, and these have only been a couple weeks, but let's say you are repainting a car that you painted a year ago, and you're worried about grease and contaminants on the surface. Rather than just wax and grease removing it in the spray booth, before you even get it in there, you can mix some Dawn dish soap with your water bottle, and as you're wet sanding, you're going to be killing and cutting down any grease that could be possibly on the painted surface. So that's just another tip that could help. I'm not using that here because these parts are only a couple weeks old and they were just sitting in the back building. Nobody was touching them or anything like that. Another thing, I am painting both fenders, both doors and hood at the same time. That's basically from the doors forward, the main front clip of the car. There's a couple little valances and stuff like that, but those really don't matter. Now, when I hang these in the spray booth, I'm going to hang, for instance, this is the driver's door, this is the driver's fender. I'm gonna hang them up in the booth so that the door's here and the fender's in front of it, just like it would to have bolted on to the car originally. So at least then both sides will be hung up and sprayed in a vertical manner, just like the quarters will be done when we spray the body of the car. The hood, doesn't matter if I spray it in the front of the booth or the back of the booth, it's gonna be laid flat regardless, so it does not matter. So that just helps to get the metallics to all lay the same way, all the way down the side of the vehicle, because everything will be in a vertical position. So I'm gonna keep going. I have a fender, a door, and a hood left to do, and then come back and use a red Scotch-Brite pad and get all these jambs scuffed up. Now, when you're scuffing up the jambs, you just want to scuff them up to the point where there is no shiny paint left. And also, if you find any little spots after you've wet sanded twice or whatever, that might still be a little bit shiny, like for instance, a little bit here looks a little bit shiny. I'm actually going to use, take you over here, and use a gray Scotch-Brite pad, because the gray Scotch-Brite pads are a thinner or finer sandpaper or finer Scotch-Brite pad than the red ones. So I'll just hit those couple spots with the gray pad. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these last couple panels wet sanded, and then I will come back and we will scuff up the jambs, and then I will get the car moved out of the spray booth and start getting these in there and hung up. Okay, I'm working on this other door here, and I had noticed, because I have these lights on the wall, I bent down and I looked down this door, and there was a little bit of a ripple in the bodywork. Not bad at all, just a little bit. So I'm actually cutting this door down with 320 grit first, wet sanding it with 320, and then I'll come back with the 500 over top. And then we'll just have to see how that looks once it gets painted. But I'm pretty confident that's gonna straighten it back out. So I'm really cutting it down with the 320 and then gonna polish the 320 marks with the 500. Okay, I got the 4 panels sanded down with 500 grit. I did that one door with 320 and then 500. I still have to do the hood, but I wanna get these Scotch-Brited. These are Norton Scotch-Brite pads, maroon color ones. I like these better than the 3M. The 3M tend to be thinner and they don't seem to cut as quickly. They seem to be kind of a pain to work with. So you just want to scuff it down. Don't have to push hard. Show you here, it only takes a couple minutes. Take your time, get in all the cracks and everything. Especially where the screws go.
This is J.B. Newbern. 170 years ago, my great-great-grandfather founded Newbern Funeral Services with a commitment to provide quality, affordable options to Ashtabula County residents. It is a tradition we are proud to continue to this day. Please watch our Facebook page and website at www.newbro.com for monthly events we will be hosting to commemorate our 170th anniversary and give back to the community where we have had the honor and privilege to serve for so many years. Newbros, making it easier in your times of need.
You could look there. See how that's all dull, scuffed up? That's all you have to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all the jambs done on the doors and fenders, and then I'll start wet sanding that hood. All right, we're getting it set up in here. It's already after 6 o'clock on Friday night. So I'm gonna go ahead and get everything set up, wipe it down, and then in the morning I'll come out here and re-wipe everything down and spray it. You can see I got some wet sanding stuff on there. So I got one more door to hang and fit the hood in here somewhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish that up, and then I will finish this video tomorrow morning. I will come out here and get all this stuff painted, and then I'll start working on the shell of the car again. Okay, I got all the parts hung in the spray booth. As you can see, I have the fender and the driver's door both hung right next to each other. This goes behind the hood. The hood's right here. lower front balance, and then the passenger door and fender. So we're gonna get all this stuff painted today. We're gonna start with a clear, intercoat clear. We're gonna put that down first. I've already used wax and grease remover on all the parts. I still have to tack cloth them off. I'm warming up the spray booth right now. Okay, this is the intercoat clear we're gonna use. We're gonna put down a good coat of this over top of the old blue, and then we can start putting down the new right here. We get a whole gallon of it, and we have our reducer for it right here. This is a polyester base coat with its own reducer. You cannot use a urethane reducer with this paint. And then they brought me a quart of single stage, same color as this. We're going to use this in the trunk, inside the trunk area. And this has its own hardener and reducer for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get some intercoat clear mixed up. This is a 2-to-1 mix with just regular urethane reducer. I'll get everything tacked off and I'll put a coat of that on there. I'm probably not going to videotape a lot of the spraying because I have a bunch of videos of me spraying already. So, okay, I've got my intercoat clear mixed up. I'm going to go ahead and go put a coat of this on, and then I'll come back and we'll do a walk around and see what it looks like with the coat of this on. It's currently 14 degrees outside. It's about 75 degrees in the spray booth. We're using a medium reducer. Okay, the intercoat clear is on. I got the gun washing and the cup and everything. But as you can see here, it's just a nice smooth satin surface. So now I can start putting the color on. Because the color that is currently painted and the new color that I'm putting on it is almost identical. The new color is a little bit greener than the old color. So I'm thinking it's probably only going to take 2 coats of paint to get the coverage I need to turn it to this color, which will save a little bit on materials. So I'm going to get this mixed up. This is a 2-to-1 mix. Remember that this is a polyester base and it uses its own reducer. So I took my urethane reducer and I put it back in the cabinet just so that out of instinct I don't go grab that reducer and start pouring it in there and screw it up. And also make sure you wash your equipment before you start putting this color into your gun. Make sure you wash your gun real good and stuff like that, because you don't want to intermix the two as they're wet. Now, talking to the company, the manufacturer, I'm allowed to put it over that intercoat clear, but it just needs to be dry. You don't want to mix it all together. So I'm going to mix up a cup of this color, and I'm going to get the first coat on, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. If anybody's wondering, for my base coat, I'm actually using one of my oldest spray guns I have. I'm waiting on a part for my Autojet 4000. So this is actually a Autojet 2000. I've had this gun for probably 25 years, maybe a little bit longer. Still working. I've only fixed it maybe once. All right, I just went ahead and put all the coats on. I ended up doing 3 coats. I did 1 good coat and then 2 light coats over top. It's nice and smooth, it looks nice and even. I made sure that I concentrated and make sure that these both match. Everything looks real good. I just need to tack cloth it off, and then I gotta start clearing it. I'm a firm believer on when you're putting on base coat, the color, that if you put on enough coats of base coat, eventually you get it to the point where it's that color and it doesn't get any darker. That's what I've experienced over the years. So I made sure that I kept putting on color on those parts until I knew that it wasn't going to get any darker. So basically after the second coat, when I put the third coat on, there was really no change in color. So I think we're good there. I think we're going to have a really good color match. Even though we're panel painting this, I don't think we're going to have an issue with it. When I go to paint the shell, I'll probably use the old color first as a base. So I'll put a couple coats of the old color down, and then we'll go over top of it with this. By doing that, we're mimicking the exact same way that these parts are painted with the lighter color underneath. So I have the paint, I might as well use it, and I'm using a lot less of this paint because I have that other color. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleared. I'm going to put 4 coats of clear on this car, and then after that, I'll show you guys what it looks like, the final product. On this first coat of clear, I'm going to use, I got a little bit of medium reducer left and a little bit of fast. So I'm going to mix these two together for my first coat of clear. And then after that, I'm going to stick with medium. The spray booth is staying at about 68 to 70 degrees today because it's so cold outside. This is a cross flow spray booth. So basically what's happening is it's taking the heat and 14-degree air from outside through the booth. So it's staying at about 68 degrees, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This reducer right here is a medium. Medium temp is between 70 and 80. We're at about 68. We're at the low end of this. I do have more fast, but I don't want to use the fast because I'd rather have the clear flow out a little bit, have an extra couple minutes for it to set, which will make it lay down a little bit flatter. So we'll stick with the medium. I'm going to use the fast and medium for the first coat just to get rid of these a little bit left in the can. And the first coat doesn't really matter. The first coat, we just want to get it down, get it somewhat smooth, let it tack up real good, and then we can start putting on our smoother coats over top. So basically it's no different than it being 80 degrees in there, and I use a slow hardener. So just figured I'd let you guys know that. Alright guys, that's it. 4 coats of clear. Very minimal dirt. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Later on today I'm going to block sand and reprimer the shell of the car and do the light undercoating on the floor pans. Not the frame, just the floor pans. I'm going to do that all in the spray booth. I'm going to put a piece of plastic down on the floor before I undercoat it, just so that I don't have that undercoating stuck to the floor in the shop, in the booth. But that's going to end this video, guys. And if you're liking what you're seeing, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon.